Welcome back to Rewind of the Living Dead. I'm Captain Damon Martin.
And g'day, Damon. I'm Patrick Guerra. Let's put another Aussie film on the Barbie, mate.
I was waiting to see if you were going to bust out the Aussie accent again. I almost did it again, but I was like, I know you're going to pull it out. So
We've just lost all our subscribers in Australia. They're like, fuck those guys. They suck.
2 weeks in a row now, we've had an Australian accent.
I know. Back to back.
Yes. Yes, tonight, Patrick, we are talking about the new shark-infested horror film, Dangerous Animals.
Yes, Damon, Dangerous Animals, released in June of 2025, starring Ella Newton as Heather, Josh Houston as Moses, Jai Courtney as Tucker, and Hassie Harrison as Zephyr, as you mentioned, Damon, written by Nick Lepard and directed by Sean Byrne. Damon, we're doing a shark movie.
Have we done, and we've never done a shark movie on here before, have we?
I don't think we have. We keep talking about doing Jaws, and I think we've come up with an idea for doing Jaws because it's 50th anniversary year for Jaws. I think it's time to do it. So I think we're gonna have to.
So I know, like, the shark genre of horror film is a very popular genre, which is weird to think that something so specific would be so popular. But
Yeah.
Jaws, to me, is one of the 5 greatest films ever made. And it's one of the few films I would say is just perfect from start to finish.
Yeah,
like no
it's
notes.
it's a perfect movie.
I'm a Tarantino guy. Like even Pulp Fiction, I was like, could we just remove Butch's girlfriend from that entire movie? Like, do we really need her in that movie? Jaws is a perfect film. Like it is perfect from start to finish. It's one of the 5 greatest films ever made. Now that being said, I'm not like a huge, like, I don't watch every shark horror movie that comes out. There are some people who are devoted shark horror movie enthusiasts. I would say I'm kind of middle of the road. Like, I love Jaws. It's one of my favorite films of all time. Deep Blue Sea. I watched a lot of the Sharknado movies just because they were so goofy. But I don't seek out every shark movie. But Dangerous Animals intrigued me from the jump just because the premise was so different and so unique. And I was like, they got something here. Before I even saw it, I was like, they got something here.
I never saw a trailer, as you know. We say it every week. Patrick doesn't like trailers. We know. But the premise was inescapable. They said a serial killer uses sharks to kill his victims. And I was like, I know the whole movie. Like, I don't need to see a trailer. I didn't need to know what it was about. I knew it starred Jai Courtney, and I was like, well, that sounds good. That sounds like a good fit. Like all that made sense. I didn't see trailers. I didn't see nothing. I went in and I was pleasantly surprised, Damon, that because to back up here and talk about shark movies for a minute, obviously, I think Jaws is one of the best movies ever made. I went and saw it. My brother and I went and saw it in the theater just to say that we sat in a theater and watched Jaws. You know, like it's such an incredible and important film in all of history. It is literally the start of the blockbuster. The Jaws was the first blockbuster. After that, basically every shark movie sucks. And I say that lightly. I say that playfully. I saw Deep Blue Sea in the theater. I definitely did. I've seen Sharknado. I haven't seen the ones after that. Bless your heart, Damon, for supporting those that franchise. And then, like, every time I looked up a shark movie and I saw something on it, it looked so incredibly stupid. One of our good friends of the show, Sydney, she's a huge shark horror person. She watches every possible shark movie, and she admits fully they're terrible. I'm not one of these people who sits down and watches terrible movies for fun. A lot of people do, and that's fine, and that's your thing. I don't have the time. I get to see maybe 1 or 2 movies a week. If I'm lucky, I'm going to watch something I think is good or decent. But when I saw the premise of Dangerous Animals, I said, this is completely different. It's not about the sharks attacking people. It's about this guy dumping people in chummy water in hopes that sharks will eat them because he's a psychopathic killer. You have me hooked on the premise alone. That's all I need. That's all I needed. I really did. And I'll say right now, without giving anything away, the quality of this movie surpasses pretty much every other shark movie outside of Jaws that I've seen, with maybe the exception of Under Paris. Did you see Under Paris?
I did after you told me about it, and I watched
Yeah.
it, and it's not a great movie, but
Not a great movie, but it's pretty, like, you're like, yeah, that's still a pretty well made movie. It's just
it
stupid.
looks
Like,
it looks good. It looks pretty good. It's just not a good movie. Like it looks
yeah,
good.
it's
Like
a
we always
stupid
say,
idea.
even some of the worst movies in the world, you can still compliment on the way they look or the acting,
Yeah.
whatever you want to compliment. It looked good. It's just not a good movie.
Yeah, the ideas in Under Paris are just so stupid. I was like, God, that's a stupid idea. Like, why? But it's the French. They can make even a stupid movie pretty well. And then this movie, Damon, I'm going to tell you right now, doesn't suffer those things. It's not like a stupid movie. Do I have to suspend my disbelief? Yes. Do I have to let go of like glaring plot holes and a few extensions of my, like, oh, I'm sorry, like the artistic license is going slightly too far here. Yeah, but I knew what I bought into way before I got into the theater. We talked about it, I think, with Werewolves, and then again with Until Dawn. It's like you kind of knew you were gonna be in for something that was a little more lowbrow, and I don't mean that in an offensive way or anything. It's just like a little bit more like popcorn movie. Sit down, maybe pop a couple of gummies, and have a good night. That's what I think this movie is.
I would disagree slightly, meaning that I think it ratchets up a couple notches from there. Like I watched Until Dawn, and for the most part, we gave that a pretty positive review based on the action, based on this gore, based on the actual killings of the movie. Like it was creative, it was fun, it was different. It wasn't the most genius movie we'd ever seen, but like yeah, it was it's a movie you can kind of shut your brain off for an hour and a half and just enjoy it. I would say Dangerous Animals is a level above that. Like I think the story itself is unique enough to where I'm like I've not seen something this way into a movie before because you can do a serial killer movie and you do a lot of times start falling into patterns with serial killer movies. Unless it's based on a real life situation, and then obviously you're kind of treading on delicate ground at that point to make it as accurate as you can when you're talking about that. But this was different. This was a little. I think that's. I know this is a weird comparison to make. I think that's one of the reasons people fell in love with Dexter when it came out. Like it was a serial killer show, but a different way into a serial killer show. I mean, the serial killer was kind of a good guy. Like he was killing bad guys, but he's still a serial killer. That's a different way in. I think Dangerous Animals attacks this in a different way, but where I say it ratchets up a little bit is I think it's a little more intelligent than that in terms of like the dialogue, in terms of the acting, in terms of the I don't know if I'm using the word right here, like the gruesomeness of it all. Like it's a pretty gruesome movie at
Yeah,
moments.
effects are good.
And I really enjoyed that. And I think, we always talk about isolated horror movies. This is largely an isolated horror movie with a very small cast. I mean, I think the cast is maybe like 6 people, 7 people, like that you actually
Yeah.
interact with. So it's a very small movie in that regard, but it's a really well acted movie. I think it's a really well written movie, which is, sometimes you don't get that. You might get good action and like say, it was a well written movie. I really liked the characters in this movie, and it was gnarly. It was a fun, gnarly movie, and in a way, I think maybe I'm just kind of off the top of my head saying this, but we always talk about slasher movies, and I think in a lot of ways, serial killers are like the cousin of slasher movies, right? Like
Yeah.
some serial killers aren't wearing masks and they're not carrying chainsaws, but a lot of the premise is the same. They're knocking off people.
Yeah.
And in a horror movie, it's knocking off a lot of people within an hour and a half to 2 hour span, which is a slasher. In a way, I would say Dangerous Animals is a cousin to a slasher film. You're dealing with a serial killer, and because they're using a different mechanism, meaning the sharks, it's a creative way in. So I think this is more of what I wanted. Not saying I wanted Fear Street Prom Queen to be a shark movie. I'm saying I wanted Fear Street Prom Queen to be good based on an 80s slasher that's kind of like taken up a notch. You got to do these a little differently. Do
Right.
these a little bit, make it in the 80s, but don't just make it a straight up 80s movie because we've already seen those. We got plenty of those. Dangerous Animals takes the serial killer story, ratchets it up a notch or two, gives you a different way in, and it's fun. But it's also brutal. This is not like a movie that you're going to sit down and feel good about for 90 minutes. There's some pretty brutal moments, so I really enjoyed it for that.
Yeah, no, there's plenty to enjoy about this movie, and I think weirdly enough, because of what its premise is, and this is a weird show because I want to say like, oh, we're definitely gonna have a spoiler section, and we will because it'll be very plot specific stuff. But the premise is not like I've told you what the movie is, and the movie is what you think it is, 100%. What I found exhausting after a while, even though this movie is quality, even though I think the acting's very good, I think that after a while the movie just became a lot of monologues, a lot of people talking about what was going on, who they were, what, like, excuse me, they were kind of filling the space with a lot of talking. The premise is really easy to understand. It's really easy, not easy to execute. I think it's actually very difficult to execute. But in terms of like, just like, oh, what am I going to see? I'm going to see people threatened by this guy, and there's going to be chasing and tension, and he's going to try to feed them to sharks. Got it. Like that's the movie. Sorry, spoiler. Like that's what the movie is. But it I think it unfolds in a clever and interesting way. It's just that after a while, it just became, oh, here comes another monologue, here comes another monologue, and here comes another, and it's like that was the way to fill the space in this movie because it's very difficult to shoot a lot of water scenes. Water scenes are like the most insane difficult thing to shoot in film. So it's like, yeah, we're not gonna be in the water the whole time. I thought when they were in the water, I thought it was really effective. Actually, I thought that was where the scares and the tension really ratcheted up, is when people end up dipping their toe in the water. But to get there, it was a lot of talking, and that kind of wore me down a little bit.
I
I was
didn't think
clocking
that.
it. I was clocking it. It was basically like a scene would happen, like a shark scene would happen, and then it would be like, Zephyr's our main character. She'd have a monologue about why the way she was, and then Moses would have a monologue about what he's all about, and then Tucker, who's our killer, he'd have another monologue about fishing. It's like, and he had multiple monologues because I think you had to kind of build up those moments. I'm not saying what I'm saying is the cheeseburger of it all, the stuff you really came for. When they do it well. So I don't want to like mix my messages here. Like if you're looking for cool tension and thriller-esque aspects, you get them. They deliver them in this movie. My critiques of this movie are sort of just like when you got to stop and hear another fish story. It's like, okay, I already heard one. I don't need to hear a second. I definitely don't need to hear a third, but here we are. And it's just like it's a little heavy-handed, is what I'm saying.
And see, I totally disagree. I think the talking parts happen just in enough beats of the action parts to where it never really does, to me, feel repetitive. I mean, I understand there's a theme there. There's a theme of like, comparing humanity to sharks and like, the nature of sharks, the nature of the beast, nature of killing, things like that. And these particular characters we're dealing with. And as I said earlier, like this is a very small cast. Like ultimately we're dealing with really boiled down to three characters, but there's six or seven for the entire movie. And your main two characters are Zephyr, the one girl who is his victim, and Tucker, who is our serial killer. While there is talking, I'm not gonna deny there's talking. I feel like the talking happened in such good beats of the actual action, and there's enough cat and mouse stuff in this movie and enough tension building
That's
between
the
the
other thing.
killing
Yeah.
that it didn't distract me. So I'm not saying you're wrong in sense of there was talking. I'm just saying like to me watching it, the talking mixed well enough with the action beats to where it never felt like that. Like there are a lot of movies I watch where there's just a slog of time. Like I'm just like, can we get to something happening here? It's like 20 minutes of talking or 20 minutes of exposition or 20 minutes of whatever, and I'm like, get back to the actual plot of the movie. This movie never escapes that. There's always some sort of an action beat every couple in a script. I guess it would be every couple pages, every few minutes in the movie. Well, yeah, there's talking. There's definitely talking, and they definitely have those moments of tension building based on like a lot of allegory, a lot of comparisons, things like that. They're talking about the ocean and so on and so forth. I understand, and that's just kind of the movie you're going to get. A lot of times you get serial killers. You could say that about Seven. There's a lot of talking in Seven. But the action beats, I think, relieve it from ever, to me, feeling monotonous. Like, it never felt that way to me. And there were actually, the last, like, 35 to 40 minutes of this movie, there were so many, like, there was so much false hope in this movie that it almost gave me like oh, it didn't actually give me heart palpitations, but I was like, oh, here we go, we're getting to the climax, we're getting to the big conclusion. False hope. Okay, here it comes. Here comes the big conclusion. False hope. And I love that because it subverted my expectations. I because you're dealing with a serial killer movie, it's hard to pull a trick, to pull a rabbit out of a hat in a serial killer movie that doesn't end. Like, we can talk about Silence of the Lambs. Silence of the Lambs is one of the greatest serial killer movies ever made, right? Now,
Oh yeah.
did that movie subvert your expectations? Yes, in a way, because Lecter gets away. Sorry, I'm spoiling a movie that's 30 some odd years
How
old.
dare you, Damon? Oh my God.
Lecter gets away, but ultimately Clarice stops Buffalo Bill. That's the premise of the movie. We're starting the movie with Buffalo Bill. We end the movie with Clarice getting Buffalo Bill, right? Now, a true subversion of expectations in a movie like that would be Buffalo Bill killing Clarice or never finding Buffalo Bill, which would have just pissed off the audience. The only real subversion there was Lecter getting away, him escaping and getting away and going after Dr. Chilton. Seven is a great example of a serial killer movie that completely subverts your expectations because of what's in the box. We all know that one.
Yeah, and the serial killer comes to them. That's another
Yeah.
great thing where they're just like their thumbs are up their asses, and he shows up.
Now, Dangerous Animals, I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm just giving you like the heads up. This is not a movie that's going to totally subvert your expectations in that way. Like, there's never a moment where the shark jumps out of the water and starts talking to us. Like, oh my God, there's talking sharks. What? No, this is not that kind of movie. This is not Seven. This is not even Silence of the Lambs. But even Silence of the Lambs, as I said, ultimately, you're not really. The plot is a through line of Clarice catching Buffalo Bill. We know in a movie like this, the outcomes are one of two ways. There's going to be a survivor or the serial killer is going to win. That's as simple and basic as you can get for pretty much any serial killer movie. So you have to give us different things in the motions of getting there. And I thought Dangerous Animals did a really good job of a unique plot with a serial killer who kills people with sharks, which is different. They're not just out there killing people and chucking them in the ocean. And so much false hope in the second half of this movie where it's like, I know what's going to happen. I know how this is going to go down. But then it doesn't happen. And then they do it again. And they do it again. And I know you can get repetitive and things like that, but that's a slasher. That's ultimately a slasher. Like, you think Sidney got away from the killers, but then there's two killers. And then you find out the two killers are her boyfriend. Sorry again, I'm spoiling the movie. It's 30 years old.
Damon.
Same kind of thing there. Like, like they give you a lot of false hope and Scream, and they keep kind of subverting your expectations in that way. And I think that's, to me, what Dangerous Animals did really well, because ultimately the point A to point B is still there. You got a serial killer and you got victims. Who's going to win? The serial killer or the victims? That's the only way it can that's pretty much the only outcome you can have.
I want to touch on that maybe more in the spoilers, I think, because I think there's a big strength to the movie there in the cat and mouse of it all. And then I think my other counter to it is another spoilery thing, which is just like, again, like, why I think this movie ends up being repetitive is sort of because of the structure that it initially puts on us. It kind of gets stuck in it. It's like there's really no choice. If I were to call this any kind of style of movie, it's a contained thriller. Or a contained horror. There's not a lot of places to go, and so that is where the repetitiveness comes in. But once you hit the third act, which I very much enjoyed until something happens, and we'll talk about that too. Once you hit that third act, the thing is going and going and going. And I really like it. And I made notes of like all these great moments of tension, these great moments of thrill, which is what you're looking for. This is not traditional horror or slasher or anything like that. It's grounded in reality, so it plays like reality. But I do think ultimately this is a very strong premise. And the reason it attracted me to the theater was I was not let down. What I was looking for in this movie, I got. I just got a little more talking than I needed.
It's funny because our good friend Chuck, he wants to be your movie guy. He did a review to Dangerous Animals. I think he saw it at one of the film festivals a couple weeks ago, and he said, I really like Dangerous Animals. Just don't go in, like, turn your brain off and just enjoy it.
Yeah.
Something to that effect. And I was like, okay, and I kind of took that advice. I didn't want you. He didn't say anything plot-wise. He just said that very basic. And so I was like, okay. Now I will say I think this is a much more intelligent movie than it's giving itself credit for.
It's more intelligent than werewolves, which you better turn your brain off there.
It is actually a kind of a, like, I'm not saying it's the most brilliant movie ever made, but it's smarter than I think you give it credit for. Like for what could be like in somebody else's hands, this would be a really dumb, just like you said, the people who just love dumb shark movies. Like this is just be another dumb shark movie, but this is actually a lot smarter than that, in my opinion. Um, and I hate ever doing this. I'm just doing it because it's relative to recency. A movie that is credited for being really smart and thoughtful and different. To me, a movie like Bring Her Back was. It wasn't bad. I said I didn't hate the movie, but there were a lot of confusing elements, a lot of things I didn't feel it needed to be in there. And that was also isolated horror. And, typically I love isolated horror. That's like one of my things. I love isolated horror. But Bring Her Back just didn't work for me because it's like a movie that was supposed to be really smart and intelligent and thoughtful and thought-provoking and layered. And ultimately, that movie just didn't work for me because I didn't really feel that, and I also thought it was a lot of confusion, a lot of weird elements that I just didn't enjoy. I'm not trying to tear that one down to build this one up. I'm just saying, like, that was a movie that I went in thinking this is going to be. We talked about the danger of this, like when Longlegs came out, everyone's like, it's the next Silence of the Lambs. And I said, please stop doing that. And everyone's like, it wasn't Silence of the Lambs. I was like, it was never Silence of the Lambs. I don't know why they promoted it that way. That was of all the genius marketing of that movie, which, by the way, they did have great marketing for that movie. That was the one thing they should not have done. It's the best serial killer movie. It's the best movie since Silence of the Lambs. Stop. It's not that movie. It's a totally different thing. And that's like saying, and so Bring Her Back was kind of like that. We're like, oh, this is such a genius, And to me, it was like, 2 levels down from that, whereas this one, it's like Jaws with a serial killer is like the easiest way you could surmise this movie, but it's also a couple levels above that. Like, it's not Jaws. I'm not going to say compare it to Jaws. Certainly not doing that.
No, it's not Jaws.
No, it's not that. But I'm saying, like, it's a couple levels above what would just be kind of a dumb serial killer movie. Like, I know that sounds like a backhanded compliment, but I'm saying, like, I think, like, when Chuck says, just turn your brain off and enjoy it, it's a fun movie. He's not wrong, but I think it's actually, I actually think it's a little smarter than that.
I remember hearing Chuck say that, and I know why he's saying that. There are conceits that you just have to accept in this movie,
100%,
and they are from that kind of lower level of like shark movie logic shit, where I'm like that, but you kind of just throw it out, and I totally did, and I think that's kind of what he was trying to get at. It's like there's going to be moments where you're going to go, okay, that doesn't work. Like there were moments where I wanted to flat out go, this doesn't work, but I was like, stop. That's not the movie I signed up for. I signed up for this movie, and it's doing what it's doing, and I'm just going to let that go. That happens like 10 times in the movie, but I'm still on the hook for the good stuff, for the tension, for the blood and guts, and the thrill of it all. I think it's all there. I just think it's weird you bring up Bring Her Back, which I know did not land for you, and it landed very well for me, which was like actually it was very layered and nuanced and interesting. This, I'm talking under its guts, is not layered and nuanced and interesting.
But I don't think what's on the
yeah. But that's what I'm saying. But what's on the surface is actually done very well. It's like the psychology of Jaws is not there. Throw it out. But the craftsmanship of what makes Jaws scary is there. So that's a compliment to it. You know what I mean? Like it's not. I'm not saying this is a bad movie. I'm just saying that like. The parts that I wanted to deliver on, which were the thrills and the chills of shark death, that's there and it exists. The sublayer, you're like, well, there's not much down here. Let's not go looking under the surface of this. Let's get in for what it is. And it's got the thrills, it's got the chills, it's got the sharks, it's got the blood, the guts, the gore, and the chum.
I'm trying to think because we're going to do a lot of the shark comparison with Jaws. And I just had this thought in my head of another movie, like, I love Roadhouse. Patrick Swayze's Roadhouse. It's a fun movie.
Yeah,
when I sit down to watch Roadhouse, I know what I'm getting into. I don't expect more than it is, and I freaking love it. Now, there are certainly more layered, intelligent well thought out action films than Roadhouse. I'm not going to deny that. There
Oh
absolutely
yeah.
are. And that's like Jaws is, I don't even know. I don't know. Would you call John Wick like one of the more, I don't know what, or the Jason Bourne, like the early Jason Bourne. I'm trying to do like the super intelligent, like really well thought out action.
Yeah,
Movie. Mission Impossible, like
Mission Impossible
like,
is what I would say is a very
yeah.
Mission Impossible and James Bond are very intelligent action
Yeah,
movies. Yeah.
take those and like say they're at the top of like action, but you can't like you have to understand what you're watching. It's a very well thought out, like plot heavy movie. And then you look at like Roadhouse, which is a great movie, but
Yeah.
you can 100% turn your brain off when you watch that movie. Like it's just fun. I think Dangerous Animals weirdly slots in the middle of that. Like it's not elevated. It's not like this, it's not blowing you away. I was talking about Bring Her Back. Like it didn't blow me away in the way that Talk to Me did, where I saw Talk to Me, I was like, I've never seen this before. This was so original, so well thought out, so well written. What an incredible achievement. Dangerous Animals, I don't need it to be that. And I almost think it wouldn't work if it was trying to be that. But it kind of slots in the middle. It's not Roadhouse.
Yeah.
It's not all the way. It's not, full on, like, let's just turn off our brains and just not, we don't need to actually intelligently watch this movie. But it's not, it's not Mission Impossible either. Like, you're not, as you said, there are definitely moments where you do need to turn off your thought process a little bit and just be like, you know what? Fuck it.
I'm going to let that go. I'm going to let that go.
We're gonna have some fun. It's like watching the original Scream when they actually call out the dumb things you do in slasher movies. Like you should be running out the front door when you should be going up the stairs when you should be going out the front door, and then when the killer attacks, Sidney runs up the stairs. The exact thing she said you should never do. That's Dangerous Animals. Like there's things in this movie where you're like, why? But at the same time, when you're just like, you know what? Let's just have some fun. So I think it's like, I is that a fair comparison? Like, it's not as low as, and when I say low like Roadhouse, I love Roadhouse. I'll be clear about that. I love Roadhouse. But it's not Mission Impossible. It's somewhere slotted kind of in the middle there.
It's not utterly stupid, and it's not highbrow. That's what this movie is. Like, okay, I'm not picking on Werewolves. Werewolves is utterly stupid though. Like it's just stupid, but it's a fun ride. If you just go on it, it's like, wow, this is stupid, but I'm having fun with it. I don't feel that way about Dangerous Animals. I go, this is good. This is a good movie, like a solid movie. It does something that we're going to get into spoilers, and I'll tell you why I couldn't give this like a full seal of approval because of something. We'll get that. Let's do that in spoilers.
Last thing before we get to spoilers, I know you mentioned the visually striking. Can I say that I think one of the reasons why shark movies are so hard to make is because it's hard to make a shark look good. Like there's a documentary coming out about Jaws, and I've watched a lot of Jaws documentaries, and they've shown how they used the Jaws and how Bruce the shark was a disaster at start. Like they had a hard time making it look real, and then very famously that one scene in the shark cage when Hooper's down in the cage and the shark gets in there and gets attached to it and he's thrashing around the water. They very famously said that is a real shark. They got in there. It's just smaller than the actual Jaws. They just blew it up on screen to make it look like a 30-foot shark, but in reality, it was a much smaller shark with a much smaller cage. Little tricks, photography, great. I mean, that's Steven Spielberg, one of the greatest filmmakers, especially like action science fiction filmmakers ever. Like not just like he's incredible, Schindler's List, everything else, but like action, like Indiana Jones, so on and so forth. One of the best ever, if not the best ever. That's a lot of trick photography they had to use to make Jaws work.
Yeah.
And they understood at that point, like we have moments where we can show this shark in its full form because Bruce is not cooperating. So if you actually think about it, there's very sparing moments when you actually see the full shark. You see the fin. The brilliance of Jaws is like the barrels. You don't ever see the shark. You see the barrels moving, the little things like that. And that's 1975. Or 74 when they shot it. The mistake that so many shark movies get these days is they try to constantly show you the sharks, and it looks bad. It looks real bad. And
real bad.
I know digital effects have come a long way, and I understand that, you know, we can have animatronics, everything else, but man, that's where you're talking about the dumb shark movies. That's what takes me out immediately when they look bad.
Yes, very big problem.
Outside of Sharknado, which I knew going in it was going to be ridiculously stupid. I mean, as soon as I saw Ian Ziering in, I was like, oh, this is going to be ridiculous.
When you hear the words Sharknado, you know it's going to be stupid. You're like, okay, that's a stupid movie. Got it.
So I fully expected that. But every other shark movie that I go in thinking, okay, this is going to be fun, 95% of them take me out as soon as I see the sharks. I'm just like, oh my God, this looks so bad. Like it just, don't do it, man. Just stop. And even in 2025, it's hard to do it. Dangerous Animals does it pretty well. Like, I was really impressed. And I don't know what the budget was. This could not have been a very big budget for a movie like this. To get it and do it looking the way it did, I was pretty damn impressed visually.
Yeah, I want to talk more. I have some time to talk about that in the categories. I actually set aside some time to talk about it because I think it's a huge strength of this movie.
All right, so let's get into spoilers. And as you said, kind of weirdly, there's not spoilers. There are, but they're not, because the premise is the premise. And if you think you know where this movie's going, you probably do. So, you know, just to throw it out there. So, yes, we're not getting spoilers. If you have not seen Dangerous Animals, it is in theaters right now. I know it is a Shudder movie, so it is eventually going to be streaming on Shudder. I just don't know when that's going to be. But it is in theaters right now. And also, don't forget, I want to throw this out there one more time. July 11th, Patreon. It is coming. Rewind Living Dead. We are launching our Patreon, and we are going to do a crazy live stream on that day to get you guys to sign up for our Patreon. As I keep mentioning, just to throw this out there, our podcast, the one you're listening to right now, still free of charge. We're not going to charge for that. If you love our podcast, you're like, I'm not paying for that. That's fine. This is extra.
You don't have to.
This is other shit. This is other cool stuff. This is more stuff. This is different reviews. This is commentary tracks. This is other things. July 11th is the launch date. Stay tuned for more details. Patreon is coming. With that being said, Patrick, let's get into spoilers. And do you want to talk about the part of the plot we couldn't talk about? It's very, very brief, but, you know.
You want to talk about the part that pissed me off?
Go ahead.
The very specific thing. Okay, look at. So this movie is very easy to follow. We actually start with Tucker and we see him kidnapping a couple of backpackers. They think they're going on a shark dive. They get up from the water. Boom. Tucker hits the guy with a knife, tosses him in the water. You go ahead, and then we don't see the girl again. Then we meet wonderful Zephyr. Zephyr's kind of a hippie girl, surfer girl, lives out of her van, is just kind of cruising around Australia trying to catch the best waves. And she bumps into this kid named Moses. They have a great little romance, a little one-night stand, and she takes off because she's one of these people that's got a little edge on her, right? Like she can hook up with you, but then she's got to go. She's really not trying to connect with anybody. And she goes to be like first at this good wave that Moses gave her a tip on. And so she's like, I'm going to go hang out there all night, and I'm going to be the first person on that wave in the morning, right as the sun rises. Well, right there that night, she bumps into Tucker by chance. And by chance, Tucker's like, this seems like somebody I'd like to take. And then off goes your movie. She's now on this boat. Moses is somehow trying to track her down. He doesn't know where the hell she is. And he uses a little bit of like surfer knowledge to try and find her. And then they're on this boat for pretty much most of the rest of the movie. There's a moment when Tucker has to come back to land to get another camera, because what we learn is he loves to film women being eaten by sharks. That's what he does. He takes people out on these tours. He dumps chum, and he's found a way to kind of make animals interested in eating people. And his big kink is I'm going to dunk a girl in the water, and I'm going to videotape her being eaten by sharks, and then I'm going to sit and watch it over my morning coffee, because that's what I like to do. That's Tucker in a nutshell. And you get a lot of that in this movie. You get kind of the rhythm of who he is and what he is and all that good stuff, Damon. So we didn't really spoil the movie. That's basically the movie. The big strength of this movie we'll talk about in a moment, which is the great cat and mouse game between Zephyr and Tucker. What pissed me off about this movie, Damon, because they had me the whole movie. We just talked about real stupid shark movies. And Damon, the great Damon Martin, said very clearly, the problem with shark movies is that they show the shark too fucking much, and it doesn't look good. Guess what, folks? Dangerous Animals doesn't suffer that problem until it does. It's a great movie. I mean, good, interesting shark movie that actually had me like nervous, genuinely nervous, because I think dark water and sharks, I think it's genuinely scary, and I think it works very well. When Zephyr finally turns the tables on her serial killer, she decides to give him a taste of his own medicine. She hits him with the harpoon, sends him into the water with a bloodthirsty great white. And I was like, cool, like that great white's going to take him under the water and, you won't see much else. Like that'll be it. No, Damon. They decided to go full blown CG shark jumping out of the water. Although I don't even know if it was CG or not. I think they may have composited a real shark and then treated it. And then they throw Jai Courtney in like a G.I. Joe in its mouth. And he looked incredibly stupid, incredibly clearly not in this shark's mouth. And I have a sneaking suspicion, Damon, you're a clever guy. Maybe you can confirm this to me. I feel like it was done on purpose. I feel like that really bad, really stupid shot of the Jaws jumping out of water with a dangling Jai Courtney who looks like he's cut out of South Park in his mouth. I feel like that was a nod to shark movie fans. Agree or disagree?
You are a very smart man, Patrick.
I've heard.
I read an interview with Sean Byrne, the director, and he was talking about this movie. And I mentioned in the intro, if you don't hear the intro, that's fine. But it's basically, he said that he loves Jaws, but he was also reminded about how much damage Jaws actually did. Because, I mean, there are people today who won't go in the ocean because of Jaws. I'm terrified of the ocean to this day because of Jaws. Like, I was in San Diego a few years ago. We went to the beach. I stood in waist-high water, and it was like, I'm not going any deeper. Fuck that. I'm not going any deeper in this water. But it caused problems because people became convinced that sharks were man-eaters. And the reality is, they're not. The only time sharks generally attack people in the water is when people are splashing around, they think you're a seal. That's it. They're not out there attacking humans. Like, that's not what sharks do. Yeah. But people had this impression coming off of Jaws, and there was it was a catastrophe for sharks because, like, people started killing sharks. And anyways, Sean Byrne said a very important part of doing this movie was it was a different way in, and the sharks, in a lot of ways, are not the bad guys. It's the serial killer who's the bad guy.
Yeah, totally.
And so he's like, I didn't want to make a movie that was going to be bad for sharks because as much as I love Jaws, it really did a lot of damage. And then he said in one of the interviews I read, he talked about this. He said, you have to have, it is impossible to make a shark movie without the moment where the shark jumps out of the water. You have to do it. Now, I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm just saying, like, that's what he said. Now, when I read that, I was like, yeah, I mean, you're not wrong, right? Like, he's not wrong because it is in every shark movie. You're right. So when you say that,
you don't need it.
when you say that, that's why I'm saying you're a very smart man because he acknowledged it. He's like, we had to have that moment in the movie because shark movie enthusiasts wouldn't accept it otherwise. I'm paraphrasing here.
Sure.
So I will 100% agree. It's the worst looking shot of this movie and the most unnecessary shot of this movie because
very unnecessary.
Early on, when Heather, who is the first girl who gets kidnapped, her and her not really boyfriend, some guy she hooked up with basically at a hostel, and they decide to go on this shark tour. They go down the caves, they have this moment, and he brings him back up. He's like, oh, what a great thing, what a great shark. And then he just jabs the guy in the neck, and he just throws him overboard. You're like, oh, shit. So Heather's been captive with Zephyr downstairs, and he pulls them up, and his whole thing is he has two women kidnapped. One he forces to watch as the other one gets devoured by a shark. And when they dump Heather in the water, you see she's thrashing around. She's scared out of her mind, as you probably would be. And the shark comes for her because it's already dropped chum in the water. It's blood all around her. She's doing what, you fuck around with a shark, it's going to go shark on you. Yeah. It went shark on Heather, and it pulled her under, and you see a very classic Jaws moment, which is the opening scene in Jaws when the girl's in the water, and you see her get pulled under, and she's thrashing and screaming, and then you see the pool of blood. very similar to that, except there's one scene later where you actually see Heather's mangled torso, the what's
Yeah,
left of Heather, and I was like, that's a cool shot. Like, you don't
it
actually
was cool.
see the shark biting her in half. You just see her under the water, the thrashing, and then you see the upper half. That would have been a better way in for Jai Courtney. Just have him bitten in half like, Herbie, the guy
Repeat
from
the motif.
the guy from Jaws, where Quint tells the story where he says he goes over and beats his buddy from Cleveland, except he's just bobbing up and down because his bottom half has been bitten off by a shark. Just have Jai Courtney that way. Like, we just see him flip up and you see his guts and everything pour out. That's cool. That'd be a cool ending. I didn't need the shark jumping out of the water. You didn't need the shark jumping out of the water. And this movie certainly did not need the shark jumping out of the water.
I don't really believe in ratings, so I'm and we don't do thumbs up, thumbs down on this show. We don't give it 5 stars. We don't do any of that. But I do put ratings on my Letterboxd, which you go find Director Patrick on Letterboxd, and that's me. And like I was like, I give movies that I think are good, like okay, right down the middle movies. I give them 2.5 stars because it's a five star system with half stars. So I go 2.5 is right in the middle, and I think Dangerous Animals deserves that. It's like a 2.5 star movie. It's perfectly fine. I'd recommend it to anybody. Like, it's fine. Because of that fucking shark jumping out of the water, I was like, it's now a 2-star. Like, you did it to yourself. You didn't need to do that. If this movie had stuck its landing, as Damon Martin just mentioned, like maybe even repeating the motif of when Heather's mangled torso was kind of bobbing and sinking in the water, if you give us a kind of a Jai Courtney, maybe a little bit of a jump scare, spooky Jai Courtney end where you see what that great white did to his body, I think that would have been much more appropriate. They said, nah, we're going to go full like dopey shark movie just to say we did a full dopey shark movie thing. And you lose me there. You really do. You really do. You really didn't have to. I thought this movie was great. And I felt like it was playful, but not stupid. And there's a lot of stupid, playful movies that that's not my taste. I'm really not into it. This movie was playful without ever crossing the line into absurd and ridiculous, and then it did that, and I was like, man, you really didn't need to do that. You had a good, decent movie here, and then you pull that shit at the end. Don't do it at the end. Do it somewhere in the middle where I forget about it. You're gonna do it at the end when it's like, boom, here was your movie, and I was like, God damn it, why did you have to do that?
And see, to me, it didn't. I mean, was it cheesy? Yes, but I said this to my girlfriend.
I mean, it's stupid.
I said this to my girlfriend coming out of the movie because she loved it, and I was like, I really enjoyed this movie, and I was like, it was a movie that teetered right on a very thin line between being good and corny, and I
Yes.
think there's a potential for that in a lot of these kind of movies where it's like a serial killer movie where it can get goofy. This movie didn't do that. It didn't cross that line. Now, I will say that effect didn't necessarily work, but the rest of the movie was so good to me. Like, you're saying 2 stars, I say 4 stars. Like, I like.
No, it would have been a 2.5 stars, what I'm saying, which is like a C, like a right down the middle movie.
Like, for me to give a 5-star, it has to be, nearly a flawless movie. Like, we're talking like, what it was for me when I saw Fresh a couple years ago. Like, I adored that movie. I thought that movie was brilliant and such a different movie I'd never seen before. This movie's not that, but for what I thought it was a serial killer movie about a guy who feeds women to sharks. And it was, but as I said, it was when I use the word elevated because that's such a dumb word for horror. It was an elevated version, as I said earlier. It's 2 steps up from Roadhouse, 2 steps down from Mission Impossible. I was worried it was going to be Roadhouse, but not in a bad way. But I was like, is this going to be Jaws 2 or Jaws 3?
Remember those muscle twins from the 1980s that were in action movies? Like most shark movies are those 2 muscle twins. That's what most shark movies are. And then you have stuff like Roadhouse is like the next step up, and then there's something right past it. And I felt like Dangerous Animals was like maybe Commando and not Roadhouse, where it's like Commando's kind of stupid but not too stupid. And it's a lot of fun and there's great action in it. Like, I feel like that's kind of where it was hovering. And then that stupid shark with Jai Courtney. I mean, he looked, Damon, like a cardboard cutout that somebody was like tracking with the shark as it went. It went right into Muscle Twins. Like, I was just like, why? You had a movie that could have floated over here and you chose to go floater, if you know what I mean.
But the reason it doesn't ruin it for me is because ultimately yes, it is goofy. I will give you that. It doesn't look great. I'm 100% agreeing with you there. But it's such a, I mean, yes, it is the conclusion of the movie, so I understand why it's so important for that. But it just, it's one moment, and that moment ultimately, like, he's going to get bitten and killed by a shark. That's how it's going to end.
Yeah.
How you do that, how you execute that, okay, I get it. Like, it didn't work in that way. It was kind of cheesy, but the end is still the end. He got bitten in half by a shark, got killed in the method by which he's been killing all the women. We knew that was coming, or at least I thought that's what it was going to be coming. It played out that way, and I'm fine with that. And because the rest of the movie was so strong, yes, it's goofy. Yes, it doesn't look good, but it didn't really ruin anything for me. And trust me, if I start picking apart, I said this.
There's a lot to pick apart if you want.
But if I really wanted to, I could pick apart Jaws. I don't choose to do that, because I think Jaws is a perfect film. But there's flaws in Jaws. There are flaws.
Well, then it can't be a perfect film, Damon.
I'm saying,
perfect films, you don't change anything.
But I'm saying, if you really want to nitpick, if you really want to nitpick,
you could if you wanted to.
But for what I wanted out of Dangerous Animals, I got, and I got more. And that's why I say for me, that's why I say, like, I don't get in the star rating. You brought it up, and
I don't like star ratings.
Yeah, it's higher for me because I went in expecting kind of dumb, fun serial killer, and I got a more intelligent, well written, well acted, well plotted, surprising at moments cat and mouse thriller / serial killer with a unique twist, being in the ocean on a boat isolated with sharks. It was cool. And so when I hate using the star, but like when I say 4 stars, I'm saying, like, it's not, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say it's the most brilliant movie ever made. But it was more than I expected it to be, and I think it's going to be more than most people expect it to be. Because when you watch shark movies, I know this sounds terrible. When you watch shark movies, you do have to do a little bit of the brain turning off thing. You have to there's a whole lot of that, because as I said, like Deep Blue Sea, I love it's awful, but I love Deep Blue Sea. But the way they explain it away is they're using injections to make the shark smarter, because they're trying to use the brain fluid from a shark to cure Alzheimer's, if I remember the plot of that movie correctly.
Something like that, yeah.
Is it ludicrous? Yes, it's absolutely ludicrous. But the way they're doing the reason they're doing that, the mechanism they're using in that movie, is they're trying to tell you that they made the shark smarter. So that's the premise of Deep Blue Sea, is the sharks are smarter. Does it work? Is it dumb? Yes. It is remarkably stupid. But I still love that movie because it's just dumb fun. Dangerous Animals is a couple levels above that. And I think that's why I like this movie so much, is because it does give you shark thriller plus serial killer thriller combined into one, and shake it all together, it still comes out as a pretty good milkshake.
And that's why I hate star ratings, because you see how much you had to contextualize that movie right now. You just had to contextualize Dangerous Animal by spreading it out over a lot of different things. And then star ratings are dumb, because it's like, well, a 4-star movie should be like something that is like almost irrevocably good, like in all aspects. But if you go, oh, I know this movie has a lot of flaws, and this movie does, again, I wave them all off. There's a lot of flaws in this movie. I just wave them off. So I'm like, okay, well, it's a click down because of all those flaws that I had to keep turning my brain off for. You know what I mean? That's why it was down in 2.5, which again, here we are wasting time talking about star ratings, which I think are bullshit. But I guess that's my rationale. My point is, like, my reasoning for it being a 2.5 and your reasoning for it being a 4 really meet somewhere in the middle. Like, we both probably think it's really about a 3 on the Damon and Patrick scale, truth be told.
No, you're probably right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, but like, you're contextualizing it your way, and I'm contextualizing it my way. And I'm going like, yeah, this movie was great and dumb fun until it ruined it with something out of a trauma movie.
It's funny because, like, I think honestly we have the same opinion about this movie. Just the one thing, like, mine that ratchets us up is, like, I keep saying, like, really dumb shark movies, and I'm like, this is better than that. This is far better than that. It's far more fun.
You're giving it a lot of points for not being a dumb shark movie.
Far more. But I mean, it is like, there is like some, like, this is a far more intelligent movie. Like, there,
Yes.
There's some dumb choices made. I'm not denying any of that, but it's a smarter movie. It's a fun movie. The dialogue's better. The acting is like all that's ratcheted up from there. And then yours gets taken down a couple notches because that final scene just really took you out of the movie. And I understand. I'm not saying you're wrong.
Yeah.
So I think we actually have the same exact opinion about this movie. It's almost like I'm giving it extra credit for being better than it should be.
Yes, I know.
and you're knocking it down because you're like, it was better than it should be until that moment.
Yeah, I don't give extra credit. That's my thing. I'm just like, where are you living? Oh, okay, you're living in this zone. Cool, I got it. Now I know what zone your movie's in. Just don't fuck that up. You're in your little zone, and to me, they fucked it up with that little thing. But I still stand by that. I think this is actually a pretty quality movie. Like it probably is going to play really great on a Friday night with a packed house and a bunch of people on edibles. Like I think it's actually going to play really well for that crowd. But at the same time, it's not fully stupid. Like it's just not fully stupid. It's a movie that tries to be smart.
Real quick before you get to categories, I want to mention I kept talking about false hope, and I didn't want to get too deep into that without getting the spoilers. I think one of the best parts of this movie is the false hope. And what I mean by false hope, without getting into spoilers, or now I am into spoilers, is there are so many moments in this movie where you think Zephyr's getting away. And,
yes.
I mean, you think it's over. She's gotten away. She's gotten over on her serial killer. And then she doesn't. And it happens so many times. Now, I will say there's a danger of doing it too many times because you're like, all right, this is just getting ridiculous. But I felt like the beats were enough. Like that's where I talked about it teetered on the line between smart and corny.
Yeah.
It was really pulling thin towards the end where I'm like, you can't do it again. You can't. And they didn't, to their credit. And the last false hope is Zephyr gets dumped in the water and the shark isn't attacking her. And so Jai Courtney's character Tucker uses one of the poles with the hooks on it, just like they have in Jaws, and he's like poking at the shark, trying to like basically rile it up to go after her. And he throws it in the water, gets stuck in the water, and she ends up using that to kind of pull herself up. And even in that moment, you're like, is she actually going to get away? And she actually uses that to unhook herself from the crane that he lowers in the water with. So she's able to swim free basically because she's no longer attached to this crane. That was the last false hope. I was like, okay, we can't, like, if she doesn't get away this time, I'm done. Cause like she got away, she got all the way to a beach at one point. She hits him over the head with a fucking cast iron skillet. Like there's so many moments where you think she's getting away and she doesn't. And it works for the most part, but I was like, if she doesn't get the fuck out of here this time, I'm gonna lose it. And she does. Like that's the end of the movie is when she gets away, and then she ends up being able to climb back on the boat, shoots Jai Courtney with the harpoon, and he dies. And Patrick's favorite part of the movie with the shark jumping out of the water. But I will say, but the false hope in this movie works really well because I was watching the theater and it wasn't packed. I would say there was maybe
mine was not either. Yeah,
maybe like 10 or 12 people, but there were plenty of like, oh shit, or oh man, like I heard a couple reactions in the movie, and I was like, that's when you know it's working because you're like, she's gotten away, and then she doesn't, and that's the classic in a way because that's the classic serial killer movie. If you're working with the serial killer, not the trying to figure out who the serial killer is, like you are in Silence of the Lambs, where you're trying to figure out who Buffalo Bill is. When you're with the serial killer the entire movie, it's usually trying to get away from the serial killer. And the false hope is she gets away, she frees herself, she's able to break free of the handcuffs, but she doesn't get away. And the way she actually frees herself from the handcuffs the final time, you're like, well, this has got to be it.
Yeah.
She literally gnaws off, she breaks her thumb, because you've seen that trick in the movie where you break your thumb and you can slip your hand through the handcuffs. Doesn't work. You're still not getting out of the handcuffs, at least in this case you're not. And so she still can't do it. She's like, you know what? Fuck it. And she bites off her own thumb. Now, does that take a whole lot of disbelief to say she's actually going to gnaw off her own thumb? Sure. Have people done it? Go watch 127 Hours and you can see it actually as a real life story where a guy has gnawed off his own hand or foot or whatever it was.
He cut his own arm off, yeah.
That's what it was. He cut his own. So could she conceivably gnaw her own thumb off? Sure, it could happen. But in that moment, you're like, well, she's gnawed her own thumb off. She's getting away. And she doesn't. Even in that moment, she doesn't get away. So The false hope is done pretty convincingly in this movie because they give you so many moments where you're like, she's getting away, and she doesn't. So I did enjoy that because there were at least two times where I was like, okay, we're going towards the climax, and they brought it back on me. That last one, I was like, all right, if they don't let her get it this time, then they're going to go the other route, which is he's actually going to kill them. That's going to be this movie. Like,
Right.
he's going to get away with it because you can't keep doing this. And they didn't, to their credit.
This game of cat and mouse with Zephyr and Tucker is why the movie's good because of this. Because truth is, shooting in the water is very difficult, and they actually use it very sparingly. And I'm pretty sure all the night stuff is done in a tank and not even in the open ocean, because shooting in the open ocean, as Steven Spielberg will tell you, is one of the most difficult things you can possibly do. So they're just like, fuck that. And I believe somebody, even I can't remember what director it was, talked about that. He was like, "Hey, if you're gonna shoot stuff on the ocean, shoot everything you can in a tank, except for like big exteriors, big wides. Everything else, shoot in a tank because it's a fucking nightmare." So you don't get a ton of shark kill. It's not this movie's not littered with it. You get like 3 in the whole movie. The movie, what keeps you on the hook is seeing how Zephyr can find her way out of increasingly more difficult situations and scenarios. Some of that requires a little suspension of disbelief, and we already covered that, so we do it. We go, okay, fine, this is what we're gonna do. And you're right, Damon. They go right up to the damn line, and sometimes their toe goes over the line. But I'm being a good judge, and I don't go, all right, foul. Like, I'm just letting them go right over that line, but and that was part of what I was talking about pre-spoilers with repetitiveness. I was like, you're getting dangerously close to just doing this over and over again until it makes no sense. And it was getting there. It was getting close. And they got away from it right there at the end. Even the end and like how she gets out is a little bit you just go, I'm letting it go. I'm letting it go. Now I'm sounding like Chuck. I'm turning my brain off. Just like, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. This is what we're doing. Got it. And that's what you get. But that game of cat and mouse was the only thing that could keep you on the hook. Otherwise, this movie would have been chock full of dialogue and nothing else. Like, you needed her to be able to have a goal and an obstacle. And they managed to kind of refresh that every 10 minutes. There was a new goal and obstacle for her.
And I think last thing I'll say on giving credit to this movie is like, this movie ultimately is very small because when Tucker captures that first couple, he kills the guy and then he puts Heather down in his basement, and then he kidnaps Zephyr and puts her down in the basement, and then he makes Zephyr watch as he feeds Heather to the shark. So Heather gets torn apart by the shark. She's really the only true shark death until Tucker. And everything else is a cat and mouse game between Tucker and Zephyr. And then this guy, Moses, who has this one night fling with Zephyr, they really connect. And I guess once again, you have to shut off your brain a little bit to say, would this guy on a one night stand really go through all this trouble to find this girl? Like, how good was she? Was she that incredible in bed that he had to be like, I got to find this girl again? I'm not saying you wouldn't do that. I'm just saying he goes to some links for
it's
a one night stand.
It's entirely possible.
Yeah, I guess it's possible. I mean, guys do really crazy shit, so I'm not saying it's implausible.
They do dumber shit for worse reasons, so yeah.
That's true. But like when he shows up to try to rescue Zephyr, you're like, okay, he's here. And I did enjoy the fact that ultimately Moses is not the savior. Zephyr ends up being the savior. She ends up being the person who has to save herself and him. So I like that because there was no hero complex here. There was no, I'm the man, I showed up to save the day. Well, you kind of did. Then you got fucked up and ended up in the basement right alongside her, and she had to rescue you. So in the end, Zephyr is the badass who saves the day, not the guy who tried to pull in. Once again, that kind of led to the whole subversion in this movie is like, there's no hero complex. There's no guy who swoops in. Even in the moment when you think he does, and this is the moment my girlfriend was like, in the movie, she's like, because when Moses first shows up, he's starting to kind of get a little bit of an upper hand on Tucker, and he tackles him, and he actually puts like I don't know, like a hook or something with like a bar on it. He's got it on his throat, and he's choking him. You're like, oh, he's got him. And then he gets smacked in the back of the head. You're like, what the fuck? And there was this neighbor guy who was always trying to work with Tucker to get like a portion of his fees for driving people out. Like, he actually does real shark tours. Otherwise, you would this guy would have got captured like 20 years ago. Every person that ever went there, got signed up, died,
Yeah.
or never came back. But he's like, hey, he wants to partner up with Tucker. Like, he just lives on a houseboat next door to Tucker. And he's like, hey, Tucker, like, we should work together. And so he sees Tucker being choked because he has no idea Tucker's a serial killer, and he hits Moses in the back of the head. And my girlfriend was like so convinced in that moment that Moses got the better of him. And I was like, that's good writing, though, because they convince you Moses was winning, and then he doesn't. Why? Because the neighbor interferes. Not because Tucker's so smart and he gets away, because the neighbor interferes. So there's these moments where you're just like, this is actually pretty well plotted and pretty well written. And, like I said, it's a fun, smarter than you think it's going to be movie.
Smarter than you think. I don't know. I don't know. Called smart. Smarter than you think.
Yeah. Let's get into some categories. Let's kick things off, and I'm just going to spoil this right now, Patrick. Best performance, as we do, we kick things off every week on the show. I'm just going to go ahead and say, and I think you agree with me because I know your answer. This is, and I'm going to let you go first, but I'm going to say it out loud. This is the Jai Courtney show.
It really is the Jai Courtney show, and no secrets to anybody. Jai Courtney is our best performance. I've watched him over the years in different stuff, and he's pretty fun. He's always kind of the side character, and in this movie, you actually get a pretty good weight, like a balanced weight of Zephyr's story and Tucker's story. So, like, half of the movie is about the serial killer and about his process and all that stuff. And Jai Courtney goes all in. I mean, I feel like that. If I was to ask him, what's your favorite performance you've ever done, I would be willing to bet that this is near the top, if not the best one. I think this is the best I've ever seen Jai Courtney. And he's given a lot of responsibility. Most of this movie is him. You have to believe that he's dangerous. You have to believe that he's got a screw loose, but he doesn't go too far with it. This is an interesting and nuanced performance from him. And also just great casting in general. Like, he just reminds me of a fisherman. He's kind of broy. He's kind of got a rugby style build on him. He's fun loving when he needs to be, because he needs to charm people to be on his boat. So all of that comes together and coalesces in this character Tucker that is completely believable, and it's all because of Jai Courtney.
He's incredible, and I like Jai Courtney. Like, my girlfriend's like, where do I know Jai Courtney from? And like, Suicide Squad. Like, he's been in those movies. Like, he's been in stuff. Like, you know him. He's very much a that guy. Like, where do I know
He's a that guy.
But this is a leading performance, and he does a really, really good job. And I think my favorite part about his performance, and this also goes into the writing, but you have to execute it on the page. The actor has to execute what's on the page. Is, as you mentioned very astutely, he is menacing and very evil at moments, but there's other times where he's kind of goofy and charming, because you can't just be menacing and actually expect this guy to lead tours where people are going to go want to get on his boat with him. Like, he can't be a total asshole freak like that. And this is me picking apart one of the greatest serial killer movies of all time. I don't care. I don't care how badly banged up you look. If you talk like Buffalo Bill, and it's the middle of the night, you're in my parking lot moving a chair, you can fuck yourself. You can move your own chair. I ain't helping you do shit. Like, when Catherine Barton goes over, he's like, you need some help with that? He's like, please? I'm like, no, fuck, no, I ain't going nowhere near that guy. Have a good time.
I have a hernia. I can't help
Have
you.
a good time with your weird blacked out windowed van. I'm going nowhere near you. Like, so
it might be the stupidest part of Silence of the Lambs was her going to help him with that fucking chair.
And Jai Courtney's character is not that. Like, he actually is kind of goofy and charming, even in the moment when he gets the couple on his boat, and he's like, I got this great meditation trick to help you calm down before you get in the water, because the girl is like freaking out. She doesn't really want to do it, and the guy's like all into it. He's like, I got a meditation trick. And he's like, he just starts doing it. He starts mentioning, he starts chanting, and he does the Baby Shark song, which is hilarious. Yeah. It was great. It was great. So he's just just enough charming and funny. And then when he turns menacing, he's pretty menacing.
Oh yeah, I think so. I think he did a top shelf job.
Let's talk about MVP. Our Ken Foray Banana Hammock MVP award, named after great character actor Ken Foray from the movie From Beyond, which I think was like our 4th episode ever, by the way. Just
something like that.
From the great movie From Beyond, where Ken Foray jumps down a flight of stairs and into a basement to kill a creature wearing nothing more than a thong bikini. Go check out that movie. It's worth your time. You can see Ken Frey in a banana hammock. Why not? That is why we name our MVP the Ken Frey Banana Hammock MVP Award. So, Patrick, when it comes to dangerous animals, who gets your MVP?
My MVP goes to cinematographer Shelley Farthing Daw. Now, Damon, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't have many phobias, but dark ocean water is pretty high up on them. And I mind you, I've been out skin diving like off the coast of San Diego, and we have dark water. We just do. Like visibility is like on a great day is maybe 15 feet. If you're in 30 feet of water. So dark water is a thing around here. Dark water with big fucking flesh eating sharks in it, even scarier. I thought this movie was very beautifully done, and whenever they're in the water, it really immerses you in the dread of this movie. I wish they did it more. I know why they didn't do it more. It's hard and expensive to do. But when they were in there, Shelley was on his game. He truly shined and made the water dark and menacing. They also they cut in a lot of actual shark cinematography. They cut in real sharks for the most part, and then when they're above water, I'm guessing they used, I don't know if they used animatronics or if they used a combination of animatronic and CG. I'm pretty sure the great white at the end was mainly CG. It looked very CG to me, actually. But otherwise, when you're in that water, that's the scare. The scariness of this movie comes from that.
Yeah, I would agree. It's a very good looking movie for the most part, and I'm saying for the most part because we do have that one scene at the end. But visually, it's a very very well shot movie. Now I know I'm going for the easiest, low hanging fruit in this movie, but there's a reason I'm doing this. So my MVP I'm giving to Nick Lepard, the writer, for a couple reasons. One, I went searching, trying to do research for this movie, trying to find interviews with him. I found a ton of interviews with Sean Byrne, the director, and he talked about Nick Lepard, but I could not for the life of me find an interview with Nick Lepard talking about this movie, like its inspiration. I was desperately trying to find something. I couldn't find anything. And this was his first feature film. And it's well written. The dialogue's solid. The story is solid. It's better than you expect it to be for what is a very simple premise. As we said, there are spoilers, but there aren't spoilers because the premise is what it is. It's a serial killer who kills people with sharks. It's not, you don't need like
it's not that deep.
You don't need a 19-page, book to tell you how this movie operates. And to actually make it better than just that premise and to make it better than that, I was super impressed, especially for a first-time script. The second reason, and this is a weird reason I'm giving him an AB, but I'm mentioning this because Nick Lepard's second film is coming out later this year. It's a little movie called Keeper, directed by Oz Perkins.
Oh.
So Oz Perkins, who has been a little hit and miss with us. We loved Longlegs, didn't love The Monkey so much. I really liked it. One of his other films, like he's had some pretty good hits. His new movie Keeper that comes out, I think October, November, is written by Nick Lepard. So we'll see, is this guy going to be able to pull it off again? When I saw that, I was like, okay. I was intrigued by The Keeper purely because it's Oz Perkins, even though I didn't love The Monkey. I really did enjoy Longlegs. I'm thoroughly intrigued now. Like Oz Perkins with this writer, I'm a little more intrigued now.
Yeah, who's going to screw who up here? that's the grand question. No, they're both actually really talented, so it's going to be interesting to see them come together. And Nick Lepard indeed made a shark movie that I can stomach.
He did a good job, and I'm curious I have no idea what The Keeper's about, but I'm curious now, even more curious.
Yeah.
Patrick, let's talk about the best gore/best kill. Now, I will say, credit to this movie, it is pretty gnarly. There are some pretty brutal moments and pretty gory moments. So, what was your favorite gore/kill in Dangerous Animals?
I think the best one was actually weirdly the neighbor, and I sort of forget the steps, but the neighbor came in and thwarted Moses' chance to win because he thought Moses was like attacking his friend, and then you cut to a little bit later after the thwarting. Tucker has killed the neighbor too because the neighbor can't know what's really going on, and you see the neighbor sitting there with just, I mean, he looks tore the hell up. I guess he dipped. I don't know if he dipped the neighbor in the water or something for the sharks to eat, or he made some chum out of the neighbor's body.
I think he just
It,
chopped him up. I think he just chopped
yeah,
him
I
up.
mean, it looked like a chopped up body. Like the gore effects in this movie are actually very good, and that was one that was on display where I was like, ooh, that just feels real.
I, I thought that was great. It looked good because you didn't necessarily know for sure how it was going to come together when he kills the neighbor with like a spike through the head, and
Yeah.
then pick up later and you see him all chopped to bits. Like, oh, geez, like he really took him to really turn him into chum. I thought it was really good. I loved the opening scene with the knife in the neck. I thought that was really cool where he just jabs the guy twice in the neck. He starts pouring blood. He just pushes him into the ocean. I love that. But honestly, my favorite gore, and it's not a kill, it's just gore, is when Zephyr is desperately trying to get out of the handcuffs. Because at first, she's trying to pull herself out and you see the skin kind of tearing on her hand. Now, I'm not going to tell the circumstances, but I've had handcuffs on me before, and I can tell you, despite what movies tell you, you're not getting out of them very easily. Like, it's not
Right.
something you're just going to trick your way out of. I promise you that. When she's pulling on her skin and you see, like, the ripping of the skin, oh, and that's nasty. Then she breaks her thumb trying to pull it out, and that's nasty. Then she literally gnaws off her own thumb. Now, they don't show her full on biting off. You see the aftermath, but you see her gnawing on her thumb in the movie. I was like, oh, it's a very visceral thing. A lot of close ups, a lot of good, like, tight in on the camera. And that just got to me. I was like, oh, God, because I know how much that would hurt.
Yeah, yeah, that just yeah, I think visceral is where this movie excels.
Yeah, it's really good. Patrick, next category, best ocean based horror movie that's not named Jaws. Now, Patrick, you put this category in our categories tonight, and without even knowing this, I was about to text you before the show and say, hey, let's add a category about our favorite shark movie not named Jaws. We were basically of the same brain. And we got on the
Yeah.
podcast. I was like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? We literally had the same exact idea without ever talking about it. So thank you for reading my mind here, Patrick. So, what is your favorite ocean-based horror movie that is not Jaws? Because we've already filleted Jaws all we can do.
With regards to horror, and that's why I said ocean based and not shark based, because I don't have another answer. There's not another answer. The answer would have been dangerous animals because it's the only other shark movie I can tolerate. So for my favorite ocean based horror, I went for a movie that came out during the pandemic, and it's a real shame that it did because I think it would have done very well, and that is Kristen Stewart's Underwater. I think it's a highly, highly, highly underrated, really good, really tension-filled horror that takes place underwater and utilizes water as as a dreadful device. It's a very fucking pucker factor of 10 kind of movie that utilizes the ocean deep very well.
Okay, so my initial when I was going to say shark movies, I was going to mention that even though it's so bad, but I love it. I was going to mention Deep Blue Sea because it's not a good movie, but it's so dorky. And so I mean, ever since Dave Chappelle made that skit where he did his Samuel L. Jackson impression, he was doing the Sam Jackson beer. You remember that skit?
Yeah.
He goes,
Oh
"A
yeah.
shark ate me, a fucking shark ate me, drink, bitch." I love. But you said ocean based. Now I'm cheating a little here because it is kind of ocean based, but it's water based. Does that count water based?
We'll find out, Damon.
Have you seen a little movie called Crawl?
Oh, I love Crawl. Crawl's fantastic.
Now that's a flooding movie.
Yeah.
So sorta. I know I'm cheating here.
Damon, I'm gonna give it to you because Crawl is a good movie, but I'm
No,
pretty
but-
sure it's
no,
not
hold on.
ocean based.
Now hold on. I was going to say that's water based. That is water based. So I'll back out of there. Now this is definitely in the ocean. It's just not a full on like in the ocean movie. But there's another movie out there called Triangle
Oh yes.
that is a time loop alternate universe. I don't even really know how to describe it without ruining the movie, but it takes place on a boat in the ocean.
I think you just did.
There's a boat in the ocean. That movie is incredible. I love Triangle. I think that's a really smart, fun movie. It's not full on like underwater like The Abyss or movies like that,
Yeah.
but it definitely takes place in the ocean. So I know I'm cheating because I mean I think ocean movies, I think of shark movies, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you Deep Blue Sea is an incredibly well-made movie, but it's cheesy and it's fun. I still love it, but yeah, I think Triangle's up there. I think The Abyss is pretty good, and obviously
The
I know
Abyss is
Crawl
great. If it was horror, The Abyss would be
yeah,
my number
yeah.
one.
It's not horror though, but yeah, so
No.
like that. And I saw I was looking at a list and I was like, somebody had the fog, and I was like, that's not an ocean. I mean, there's one scene on the ocean, but like it's not really an ocean movie. So that's why I said Triangle. It does take place in the ocean, so and there definitely are water scenes in that movie.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's got a lot of ocean in it, like maybe just a little less than Dangerous Animals, because most of it takes place on the ocean liner anyway, and so does Dangerous Animals. It takes place on a boat. So, Triangle, yeah, that's a fair answer.
But I had to mention Crawl because for
Crawl's
water-based
good.
movies, Crawl's a good movie, man. I love Crawl. Did you
I
ever
would
do a
be.
sequel?
I'm in. As long as Alexandra Aja is part of it, I'm in. I think
Yep.
Crawl is phenomenal. By the way, one of Quentin Tarantino's favorite movies of the year it came out. I'm sure you knew that.
I'm so glad you mentioned it, and I didn't have to. So thank you for that. Uh, Patrick, next category: can we survive this horror film? Now, let's be on. We have to kind of suspend disbelief here because Tucker kidnaps women, and yes,
Yes.
Moses comes to look for Zephyr, and that's how he ends up on the boat. But Tucker is not kidnapping dudes. Like the dude that gets on the boat gets jabbed in the neck and thrown off. So
Yes.
if you're going there with your wife, pretty good chance you're not making it out alive. So we got to kind of switch things around a little bit. In theory, do you make it out of here?
I thought about this one very, very clearly. Now, I mentioned earlier, Jai Courtney's he's a rather well built man, kind of barrel chested, bigger dude. But I really thought about this. I go because I don't know why this is the case, Damon. Maybe it's a sad state of affairs. My head is kind of always on a swivel, and if I were, I don't even think I'd make it onto a boat with him. I'd have been like, I don't like the feel of this, so we're not doing it. And but that aside, let's say we end up on that boat somehow. I I don't want. This sounds so fucking like machismo bullshit. I think I could take him. I did jujitsu for 15 years. I always fought guys bigger than me. I always fought guys about Jai Courtney's size all the time. And again, being a guy who has his head on a swivel and always kind of has his hands at the ready, I'd be like sniffing this guy out. I think Moses tried to fight him, and Moses, if they went toe to toe properly, would get laid out by Tucker. He didn't have fighting skills. And then I thought about Damon Martin, and I'm very curious your answer because I guarantee you're at least 6 or 7 inches taller than Jai Courtney.
So I had two thoughts about this. The one is the really boring answer, which is I'm not getting on that fucking boat because I'm not swimming with
Right.
sharks. That's the easy answer. You're not getting me anywhere near sharks, so I survive based on that because I don't even want to go in 3 feet of water, much less actually swim with the motherfuckers. So no. But let's just go on the premise.
Yeah, let's play the game.
Now, I'm kind of like you. I'm always kind of hyper aware of my surroundings, and I'm always like, I don't know. I'm just very cautious. Maybe I shouldn't be, or maybe I should be. I don't know. But I feel like if I got in that situation where I was the boyfriend with the girl or the hookup, whatever it was, the people at the hostel beginning of the movie, like, okay, you're probably not going to get me down the water, but neither here nor there. Let's say you get me in the water, I come up. I'm still going to be very cautious. Like, because this dude, even though he seems somewhat trustworthy, he's kind of sketchy. Either way you look at it, he's kind of sketchy. He's got a one-person thing on a boat. Could he jab me in the neck with the knife and kill me? It's possible. Could do the same thing.
Sure.
Just a quick motion, boom. But if we're playing realistic here, I think I'm turning the tables on this guy, and he's like, there's a reason why I show up to the boat, and he's like, yeah, we're not taking you, man. Like, we can't have you
Yes.
today.
I think that's kind of how that
Because
goes.
I double-leg that guy, and I'm dropping elbows on him immediately, and Jai Courtney's like, it's over. Like, the only way he's saving
Yeah.
at that point is the neighbor knocks me out, because I'm dropping bows on that dude.
Yeah, and if anyone thinks we're like talking tough, Damon and I actually train combat sports. So it's not like we're talking out of our asses like, "Oh, I think I could take anybody." It's like I am just a situationally aware person, and like I would have never dropped my trust with this guy. And I've been in situations not too dissimilar, and like my guard is always up for like a week on end with people. Like I don't know you. I just met you, and for the rest of this week, I don't trust you really. I'm like I'm learning your moves. I'm breaking you down. Like I'm not talking tough. I swear, Damon. I'm really not. I'm just saying like that's how my brain operates. So you don't have my trust, even if you think you do. So if I even after I got up out of that cage, I'd be like, this is the part where he's trying to get the jump on me, right? Or even getting in the cage, I'd be like, shit, he's trying to get the jump on me in this cage. That's how my brain works. It's exhausting, Damon. I don't recommend it for people, but I do think Damon Martin and I end up surviving this.
And I also say, like, I put myself in the Moses situation when he actually gets in the fight with Tucker.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
and I'm thinking in that moment, like, and I'm not like I cover combat sports for a living. You put me in the same room with a UFC fighter, I'm getting my ass absolutely handed to
100%.
me. 100, and I don't care if it's the 155 pounder. I'm 6'3". I'm a big dude. I'm double the size of a lot of UFC champions. They would kick the living shit out of me. I have no illusions about that. And I'm not saying
Right.
otherwise. I would get my absolute ass handed to me. But that dude, in that moment, in that room where Tucker and Moses are fighting, there's one of us that's going to walk out of there, and I promise you it's not Tucker. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that was really where I realized it. When I was watching Tucker and Moses fight, I was like, oh, this kid Moses doesn't know how to fight. Like that's the thing. Like he doesn't have any of that awareness to do that stuff. So that's why I thought we'd survive.
Jai's a beefy dude, you know what I mean? Like he's not.
Yeah, he's not a small guy. But I'm somebody who's I've always fought guys bigger than me. The Damon Martins I didn't fight a lot because you just get hurt. Like there's just but dudes around Jai Courtney's size were about the bigger dudes that I would roll with, and it was fine.
Is it wrong that was like I'm watching that scene with Moses and I'm like, why doesn't he just do this? Like, why doesn't he just grab
I was
his leg?
doing that the whole movie, and I was like, stop it. That's not, this movie doesn't do these things. Like I was like, you're using a knowledge base that this movie's not playing with. So
use your speed, use a jab, stay on the outside, don't let him clinch you.
What are you doing? You circle away. You never go straight in and out. What are you doing? Like, but I was like, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah. I had that thought though in the movie. I was like, come on, dude, you can get him. And yes. Next category, Patrick, remake, sequel, or leave it alone. Pretty self-explanatory for new listeners, perhaps. This is the category where we take whatever movie we're reviewing and we say, can you remake it? Can you sequel? Or excuse me, should you remake it? Should you sequelize it? Or should you just leave it alone? So, Patrick, when it comes to Dangerous Animals, remake, sequel, or leave it alone?
I would like to say leave it alone. I think it's just fine the way it is. I don't need more. We don't get a sequel with Tucker anyway, so he's out, and it would be absolutely ludicrous to have this exact same scenario happen with somebody else. I don't think it would be interesting or fun or a way in, and so for me, it's a pretty easy leave it alone.
I agree 100%. I don't need to add anything to that. This is not a perfect movie, but for what it is, it works. It works well enough, and it wouldn't work again. Like you don't need to do it again. It's a pretty well plotted out individualist kind of movie. I'm fine with this being standalone. I don't need another one.
Yeah.
Now, Patrick, I'm gonna throw one other quick like off the
Sure.
cuff category at you because I wanted to mention this at the top of the show, and I know we've talked on this show before about how much we have a lot of ways borrowed. I like to use the word borrowed. The premise of a lot of our categories from a great show called The Rewatchables, Bill Simmons' podcast, The Rewatchables. They do a ton of categories, way more than we do. But they have one category that I thought about with this movie. Is there a better name for this movie than Dangerous Animals? Because as much as I think one of the things I dislike about this movie the most is the title. It's just a weird title, Dangerous Animals. Like, when I think about that, it doesn't scream shark movie. It doesn't even scream serial. It's just like, it's a weird name for a horror movie. So is there a better name for this? Like off the top of your head, is there a better name for this movie than Dangerous Animals? Because I got to be honest, I didn't love the title.
I didn't love the title, but by the end I understand what it meant because it's saying the sharks are dangerous, Tucker's dangerous, and so is Zephyr. They're saying, oh, they're all animals, right? It's not dangerous sharks. That would be stupid and on the nose. And it's not, dangerous people because I don't know, that's kind of weird too. So I would go right down the middle and say Dangerous Waters. I think Dangerous Waters is enough. It feels weirdly generic but ominous at the same time. So you don't quite know what's going on, but you'll understand right away what's going on. If you told me blindly, let's go see Dangerous Animals, I would assume it takes place on the African savannah. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, I don't know that I have a better name for it. I think Dark Waters.
Yeah, which there's a Dark Waters movie out there.
There's just something like that. Like when I heard that, I wish I had a better answer, and it's my own category. I just threw at you, but I was like, dangerous animals. I think there's one thing that bugged me. I was like, that's a weird title for this movie. I feel like there's got to be a better title. Like it doesn't need to be.
It makes sense. It makes sense by the end, like thematically, it makes sense. But I know, like it doesn't scream shark movie.
Yeah, like it's like I almost feel like in a way, like I know it would teeter on movies that have already been made, but like they call the great white shark like a predator, things like that, like predator prey or something like that. Like I know that's playing into actual predator movie titles, but like hunter prey, predator prey. Like I feel like because that's really what this movie is. It's Tucker the predator versus Zephyr the prey. They're kind of combating each other throughout this movie. It's like predator, prey, something like that. But then you're still not really getting the shark of it all. And I don't really know that you need a shark. So that's why I say like Dark Waters, Dark Ocean. I don't know, something. Just Dangerous Animals just didn't work for me. I'm sorry. It's just the title's weird.
I'll go Dangerous Waters, Damon. I think that'll work.
All right. Last category, Patrick. Is it Sharky? Oh, it's interesting. So Patrick, when it comes to dangerous animals, dangerous waters, or predator prey, whatever we're going to call this movie, is it Sharky?
It kind of is. It's a little light on shark kills, if I'm being completely honest. But here's the thing. Really, the categories, is it scary? It's thrilling. It's action-packed. There's a lot of tension in this movie. There's a couple of clench butthole moments. And when you are in the water, that's when I was scared the most. Like, this movie has those things 110%. But, Damon, if I'm going to answer, is it Sharky? I would have been like, like you've seen more sharks in more movies. But because of that stupid ending that I hated so much, it 100% is a shark movie. If you're one of those shark movie junkies, that ending gives you that full satisfaction, the full plate, the full dinner, the 5-course meal, because you get that corny ass moment in the end of the movie where crash test dummy Jai Courtney is in the mouth of a Jaws somehow that's like 50 feet long.
So it is definitely Sharky, and I think my favorite Sharky part of this movie is the attention to detail, which is what I mentioned earlier about the director Sean Byrne said, sharks aren't really interested in eating humans. And there's a great scene in this movie where they dunk Moses in the water and Zephyr yells, "Don't move." Because that's what gets you killed by a shark is thrashing around. They think you're a seal. So they bite you because you're food. So he stays very still, and guess what? The shark fucks off.
Yeah.
Because he's not doing anything. And so that's realistic. Like, sharks are not out there manhunting. They are not trying to kill humans. You just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time thrashing around like it's dinner, and that's why a shark bites you. You're asking a shark not to go full shark, okay? It's not the shark's fault.
Right.
You're in its ocean, okay? So I thought it was very smart because I've always heard that. Like, they go after people who are thrashing around in the water like a seal. That's what they typically eat. When Moses sat still, didn't move, the shark just moved on. I was like, this is realistic. They're not just aggressive killers. So, yeah, it's really Sharky because it actually gives you that little attention to detail.
And a big dopey scene at the end. So,
which, according to the director, every shark movie has to have, and this one has it. So,
It sure has it. This is a guaranteed shark movie.
It is. All right, Patrick, that's our episode for this week. Obviously, we'll be back next week with another new episode. Always check us out on all your favorite podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, of course, over on our YouTube channel. Just search Rewind of the Living Dead. If you don't watch us on YouTube, if you could like and subscribe, would mean a lot to us. Really helps us out with search results and algorithm and all that kind of good stuff. And you can always find our podcast as well as articles, trailers, all kinds of good stuff over on our website, rewindofthelivingdead.com. So check that out. Movie, you got questions, movies you'd like us to review, your favorite shark movies that aren't named Jaws, please reach out to us anytime. Hit us up on email, rotlivingdead@gmail.com. That's rotlivingdead@gmail.com. Or find us on social media. We are on Twitter/X for as long as it exists until Trump nukes Elon's program, which I think might happen any day now. Facebook and or Instagram. Hit us up anytime. Just search Rewind of the Living Dead. We always try to answer messages and get back to you guys, comments, things like that. So please hit us up anytime on those platforms. And you can also find us on our own personal social media channels. I am at Damon Martin, and you are?
At Director Patrick.
And a big thank you, as always, for everyone that tunes in. We'll be back next week with another edition of Rewind of the Living Dead. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you then.
Good day, mate.